Hi there guys, back with another video for the Canteenshop.com, and in this video we're going to be taking a look at their Slingshot Scout Starter Pack by Flippinout Slingshots. So during this video what I'd like to do is go through what's in the pack, what I think is unique about this particular slingshot system, and then also go through a couple of tips for shooting a slingshot. Back in England, slingshots are quite a popular tool for acquiring a meat source, small game, and the reason being is it's a bit of a grey area, the law around hunting with a slingshot. Back in England there's no specific law governing its use. There are other laws, for example the Wildlife and Countryside Act of 1981, that go into detail about wounding an animal using sticks or stones. And basically it falls under intent. If they can prove intent that you intended to hurt and not to take the animal, to kill the animal, then the law kicks into effect. However, that said, there's never been any case law back in England surrounding the use of a slingshot, so they're very popular with the outdoors and bushcraft community. Here in the US it's a different story. Different states have different rules. Here in Idaho I am allowed to hunt certain game using a slingshot. So because of the rules back in England, slingshots are used a lot, and I love using a slingshot. There's a couple of different ways to use a slingshot, and we'll go through that in this video as well, and I'll give you a couple of pointers that I find really handy. But first of all, let's take a look at what you get with the Scout Starter Kit. So let's take a look at what you'll receive when you order the Scout Starter Pack from the Canteenshop.com. First up, obviously, you receive the slingshot itself. This is based on the famous Axiom design. There's two colours available from the Canteenshop.com: OD green, which is this particular slingshot here, and then there's also a coyote brown colour, so you're able to then colour coordinate if you so wish with your remaining kit. You also get two sets of slingshot bands. I've tried them both and these are by far my favourite. These are known as the Nitros, and it's basically two sets of bands on each side of the slingshot, giving you extra poundage in that draw. You also come with a standard set of bands, which is a single set either side. If you're just starting out with a slingshot, these make really nice practice bands. It also comes with a set of flip clips. We'll go over these a little later on in the video. I've never come across these before. I think they're a genius idea. It's just a way of attaching the bands to the slingshot, but it's very, very quick, very, very easy. But we'll go over those a little bit later on. You also get a set of rubber bands for attaching it in the more traditional way using the wrap and tuck method. And again, we'll go over this a little bit later on in the video as well. You also get some 3/8 inch steel ball bearing ammunition. And you get a net weight of 2 pounds worth. That's a lot of ammunition. If you're just starting out using a slingshot, that's a lot of practice ammunition. You should get pretty good just using the 2 pounds worth of steel ball bearings provided by the Canteenshop.com. This is actually my favourite sized ammunition. But what's most important, and what I really love about this Scout Starter Kit, is that the Canteenshop.com have gone by my favourite motto, which is safety first and always. And they've provided a set of safety glasses. These should always be worn, whether you're practicing or you're shooting for real. Always wear the safety glasses. It just takes the slightest mistake, the slightest mishap, something to go wrong, and you get a damaged eye. Last thing you want to do is lose your vision while you're having some fun. So make sure that you wear the safety glasses. So that's everything that you receive with the Scout Starter Pack. It's actually a very comprehensive pack. What we'll do now is we'll go through, and I'll go through a couple of shooting techniques that I use for the slingshot, and then we'll go on and we'll look at the specifications of the slingshot and those different ways of attaching different bands. Okay, so what I've done is just behind the camera I've just set up a very short range, and at one end I've been down and I've just set up some clays in a part of a dead aspen here, and they're going to be my targets. And then what I've done is from the clays I've just put down a piece of dead wood and I've paced out. It's round 7 yards, I guess, just thereabouts, and we're going to use that as our range for shooting. But what I wanted to do first of all is just go through a couple of tips that I use to shoot the slingshot. This particular slingshot, the Scout by Flippinout Slingshots, is set up so that you can hold it in what I refer to as schoolboy style, which is the traditional style, upright, drawing back like this. I prefer to shoot, however, what we refer to as gamekeeper style, and that's where the slingshot rotates through 90 degrees. You move your hand up the grip and grip the slingshot up near the top of the forks. I find that much easier. You can then draw back and use the forks then as your sights. It also allows me to make sure that I follow the 3 R's of any shooting discipline, and that's repetition, repetition, repetition. And what's meant by that is every time we repeat the shot, we make sure that we keep everything that's under our control the same, and that limits the variables in the shot when the shot is fired. What I tend to do, just on your face, if you turn your face to the side, just where your cheekbone meets your jawbone, there's a little dimple in there. And what I like to do is draw the slingshot back so that my thumb sits in that dimple. Basically, the first knuckle on my thumb sits in that dimple. I keep my other arm dead straight. That way I know that the draw on the slingshot is the same every time I draw it back. Everything stays the same. The only variables I then have to worry about are things like the moving target and the breeze, for example. Something else I like to do before I shoot is just go through and fire a couple of shots without anything in the slingshot. That way I can just get back into the swing of things and just let my muscles adjust to what I'm doing. There's a slight breeze down here in the riverbed. Again, I just want to make sure that I'm following those 3 R's: repetition, repetition, repetition. And by doing that, making sure that I'm doing everything the same every time, I limit the variables. I can limit what can change, therefore I limit what can go wrong with the shot. Just want to take your time, make sure you breathe, control your breathing just like in any shooting discipline. I'm going to draw back to the same spot on my face, hold it steady, let her slide. Again, I want to repeat the same process. That way the poundage on the draw is the same, my sight line's the same, my sight pitch is the same. Wind's picking up a little bit here. As long as you maintain, keep everything the same, you're going to get a nice shot every single time. As you can see, powerful and accurate. I'm a big fan of this style of slingshot, and I like the fact that it can be used in a multiple of different holds. As I mentioned earlier, we go over and have a look now at the different attachments that are available for attaching various different bands and for swapping bands out. Also, we'll have a look at that wrap and tuck method that I mentioned. All the kit is provided for all of these different methods, and what we'll do is we'll switch over to a desktop view. We'll take a look at the size of the slingshot, the specifications, and those different attachment methods. So we're just going to take a look at some very quick basic measurements, and first of all we'll look at the length or the height of the slingshot. From the base of the handle to the top of the forks, it measures in at 5.75 inches. The next measurement that we'll take a look at is the mouth of the slingshot, and that's the distance between the two forks, and that measures in at 2 3/8 of an inch, and that's basically your clearance for the projectile that you're firing through the slingshot. Let's take a look at the width of the slingshot, and that's from the outside of the left fork to the outside of the right fork, and that measures in at 4 inches. So as you can see, it's a very compact slingshot. Last, we'll just take a look at the tubing diameter holes, and they are 5/16 of an inch in diameter, and that allows you to add surgical bands to the slingshot. As I mentioned, this kind of falls under the different methods of attaching bands, and we'll take a look at those now. Okay, so now we've taken a look at those measurements of the Slingshot, let's take a look at the options available for attaching the bands. Now there's two options available for attaching flat bands, such as these nitros, and that's the flip clip, which I'm using here, and then there's the old wrap and tuck method, and we'll take a look at both of those right now. You'll notice with the Scout Slingshot that the forks are actually indented. There's grooves cut into them, and that is to accommodate the flip clip. This is the flip clip, and you can see on that clip there that it actually has an additional tongue section to the clip, and that is designed to marry up perfectly with the grooves in the forks. These are actually side dependent in that they're made for a specific side. One's made specifically for the left, one's made specifically for the right. They are then held in place with a small Phillips screw. And this is the only drawback that I can really see to this system, is that you need to carry a multi-tool or a single Phillips screwdriver to maintain or swap out bands while in the field. While attaching the bands, there's no need to apply any tension at all. You just want to put that screw in so that holds the clips in place. We'll come back to the Slingshot in just a moment. When attaching your flat bands, you obviously want to make sure that they are set up correctly. Now I like to have my pouch with the shiny smooth leather on the inside so that there's no traction against the ammunition. It gets a nice smooth release from the pouch when it's fired, and with the rough side on the outside, it adds traction to my fingers, improving my grip and allowing me to get a nice grip on that pouch when I draw back on the Slingshot. So I always make sure that my shiny pouch is on the inside when I set my bands up. You also want to make sure that your bands are flat and not twisted. If you're using the nitros like these ones, you want to make sure that the band underneath doesn't perform a half twist while the one on top remains flat. I've had that a couple of times. Now the beauty of these flip clips, if we just bring the Slingshot back into view here, is that you basically just raise the clip up, slide the band underneath and apply pressure to the top to hold the band in place. It's then a case of just flipping that Slingshot over. Now we need our Phillips screwdriver. I always carry with me some form of multi-tool regardless of what I am doing. So again guys, just to run through that, you raise the clip up, make sure that your lip, your tongue and groove is all set up, slide the band in, apply pressure to that clip just to hold the band in place, flip the entire unit over, keeping the pressure on, and then we can just add some torsion to that screw. You don't want to over tighten this screw, just enough so that when the screw starts to fight back, that's good enough, and that will hold that band firmly in place under tension. It's then just a case of repeating the same for the other side, again making sure that the bands are flat, sliding those underneath, and again pushing down, getting the tension on there, flipping the entire unit over and tightening down that screw. Again, as soon as that screw starts to fight back, it's tight enough, and that's your bands in and done. And as you can see, if you pull tight on that, it holds those in place really nicely. And again, if you're out in the field, you want to swap those bands out, or you end up with a band that's snapped, or you want to swap bands because you're moving to a different weight ammunition, for example, it's then just a case of loosening off those screws, sliding those bands out, and sliding your new bands in. So what if you're not a flat band user, you prefer to use the tubular or the circular bands? The Slingshot will also accommodate those. The holes that the flip clips drop into are designed specifically to take the tubular style bands. It's just a case of sliding those in from behind. It's a nice tight fit, sliding that through and coaxing the band through. Now the flat bands actually traditionally were originally used on Slingshots before the surgical bands became popular, and I have to say I'm much more of a fan of the flat bands than I am the tubular bands. I just find that you get more power out of them basically. Now to attach these, we're going to use the wrap and tuck method, and the wrap and tuck method can be used just as well on tubular bands as it can on flat bands, and we're going to use the piece of rubber provided in the Scout kit. Now this is a little bit more fiddly to perform And the way that I like to do this is to bend the tube down and pinch the piece of rubber underneath. So I place the rubber on the slingshot and I bend that tube down. That then leaves this finger here free to catch the rubber as I wrap it. Now you want to keep this nice and tight, so you want to pull it tight and wrap it round. Come round, catch it with the other finger, keeping it tight, and come back round. And you want to perform 3 wraps at least. There's 2. And this will be my 3rd. Oh. 1, 2, 3. Catch that. And then with my thumb, what I'm now going to do is place my thumb on top of that wrap. I'm going to wrap it over my thumb. I'm going to come round, I'm going to catch that with the finger, and then going to place that part of the band under my thumb, like so. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to perform a rolling motion. So I'm going to roll my thumb back, pulling the band, this piece here, which is trapped underneath my thumb, underneath the band that is wrapped over my thumb. And what I'm going to do is, as I roll that back, I'm going to slide the top band off my thumb. And what that then does is create this little tuck here. And that's perfect. That will then hold that slingshot band in place under tension. Now it's a little bit more fiddly, that technique, and obviously the benefit of this over the flip clips is all that requires is for you to carry the little pieces of rubber. You can obviously use rubber bands, office bands, or the Canteenshop also supply these bands, and as I say, you get these bands with the Scout starter kit. What's nice about these is once you've mastered the method of tying them, untying them is simply just a case of sliding that loop out and then letting it unravel. It's simply that easy, and then you can then remove the band and carry on with whatever it is that you're doing. So there's 2 methods that this particular slingshot body will accommodate for attaching bands of both the flat style and the tubular style. They're a lot of fun, slingshots, but there's also a lot of inherent dangers, as with any shooting discipline. So please do act responsibly, and remember, safety first and always. And if you are going to go out hunting to secure some kind of food source with a slingshot, please make sure you are up on the laws for your local area, regardless of what country you are in. Please do check before you head on out and use them. As always guys, I thank you very much for watching, and until next time, please do take care.